So there is a video on the channel known as Emily Dickinson's Darkest Poem. I make quite a big deal out of some of the darkness in Emily Dickinson. I talk a lot about there are if you really are willing to delve deep into the poetry, there are quite a few of Emily Dickinson's poems that could be deemed as sad. There are a lot of Emily Dickinson poems that are really just conflagration of piss and vinegar. I mean, the amount of I would say almost systematic vitriol that is beneath some of Emily Dickinson's poetry. I'm seated, I've stopped being theirs, for example, is incredible. Today, in just 8 short lines, we might have a contender for Emily Dickinson's saddest poem. And I'll get into a little bit of why that is. And it's something that's really sort of rooted at the meaning of poetry itself. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will take place in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the Emily Dickinson playlist, a playlist of videos that is completely dedicated to the greatest poet of all time. But number two being the poetry discussion playlist, an ever-growing playlist here on the channel that is something I'm actually pretty proud of because there's very little poetry shared on YouTube. The poem in question today is known as For Each Ecstatic Instant, and it reads as such. For each ecstatic instant we must an anguish pay in keen and quivering ratio to the ecstasy. For each beloved hour, sharp pittance of years, bitter contested farthings and coffers heaped with tears. Now, basically, what the poem is saying is that for every good that you experience in life, for every moment of happiness, there is a price to be paid. That price will be paid in suffering. Clearly, this is not true. Some people have great lives. There is not an exact toll along the road to be paid for every moment of happiness that you are granted in your life, that you earn in your life, that you steal from the coffers, if I am allowed to recycle that word, from the coffers of the universe. But this is a truism, if you will, that is so deeply embedded in the metaphysics of the world in which our speaker, I dare not say Emily Dickinson, I dare not say our author, but I'll get back to that because I think that is very important. This is so deeply embedded into the metaphysics of what our speaker experiences that they are willing to put that on the page in this fashion, and not just there's no narrative built around this, right? This appears naked on the page. This appears as we have it. This is simply our speaker. So not exactly as we have it. This is the public domain version of the poem, which was published. Many of the Emily Dickinson's poetry has many different iterations that you will find, and this because people were uncomfortable publishing it the way that Emily Dickinson had put it down on paper until basically the complete edition, the complete collection of Emily Dickinson was put into print. People thought, oh, well, no one will read this. Oh, well, no one will understand this. Oh, well, no one will get this. But they were underestimating the reader. They were underestimating people who are willing to invest in poetry, invest their time and mental faculties in poetry. The metaphysics of our speaker, the reality, the underlying reality of the way the world works to our speaker is so black and white contested that our speaker is willing to straight up make the assumption not only that there is a one-for-one translation of joys to sufferings that happen in your life, but basically saying that every moment that you steal from the universe that is enjoyable to you, there is an exponential price to be paid. For each ecstatic instant, we must an anguish pay in keen, quivering ratio to the ecstasy. Keen, quivering ratio to the ecstasy. For each beloved hour, sharp pittances of years, bitter contested farthings, and coffers heaped with tears. Now, at the beginning of this video, I said that I am willing to say that this is one of Emily Dickinson's saddest poems. I said that it is because of the very nature of poetry that I'm willing to make that posit. The speaker in this poem, the person delivering these lines, has put up no mask. The speaker delivering this metaphysic to us, this truism about the universe, this very idea that for everything you enjoy, there is exponential price, is never given a mask, is never given an alternate identity, is never given some other type of way to be addressed. This is simply to our speaker surface level. Poetry is very difficult. Poetry is very nuanced. Poetry is very ornate until it isn't. This poem is along the lines of isn't it? Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he? This poem is 8 lines, is what we got there. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, probably it's less than 50 words. It is very difficult to really put up any type of argument in such a naked poem that this is anything other than Emily Dickinson's understanding of reality. That this is Emily Dickinson's very idea of what it means to exist. Is it possible that this is not that? Yeah, sure, absolutely it is. But oftentimes in Emily Dickinson, when we get an idea presented to us which is more superfluous, which is more experimental, when we get ideas given to us which are on the wilds of extreme, when we get ideas given to us that are maybe the play of philosophies in Emily Dickinson's mind, ideas battling back and forth rather than just simply, hey, this is what I think about life. When we get those ornate poems, when we get those extravagances from Emily Dickinson, the speaker is more illustrated in the poem. Because I could not stop for death, right? I died for beauty, but was scarce adjusted in the tomb. We have an actual speaker present in those poems. We have the reason to believe that those poems are filtered because we have an I present in the poem itself. We do not have that here. This feels much more like simply a thought that has been racing around in Emily Dickinson's mind, probably for decades. You've been here, right? where it feels like no matter what goes right for you in life, you're always waiting for the other foot to drop, if I'm allowed to use cliche, where you feel as if everything good that happens, you have to watch your back because eventually the hammer will fall. I don't think, even if you have felt that way, that you have gone to such an extreme as to. I wouldn't imagine. I would bet against, even if you have felt that way, that you have felt that way to such an extreme as to say, to posit, that for every good thing that happens, you will be punished into near eternity. But that is what we have here in this poem. That is what we have, maybe presumably, in first person from Emily Dickinson. That's why I think this may be one of Emily Dickinson's saddest poems, if not the saddest poem. The underlying metaphysic is that of suffering. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do on the channel, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more poetry content in the future. There's poetry on the channel every Monday, and there is plenty of other stuff going on as well. Stephen King, Ernest Hemingway, etc. Recently finished Dubliners by James Joyce. So, hey, hope to have you back for the next one.